Good day. I'm Ben Franklin, and I'm in a most hallowed spot that doesn't appear to be much, but it is very significant. What you saw here was the remnants of a road, and with a placard here that I'll explain in a second. But the road itself was cut through here by General Edward Braddock in his Braddock's expedition during what would be the beginning of the French and Indian War in the Americas. Now, why this plaque in this spot in this road? This is the marker spot where General Braddock, that was mortally wounded at the Battle of the Monongahela, was originally buried. He is buried right in the middle of the road. When Braddock's troops, his British regulars, and all the ancillary accompanied wagons, wagoneers, all the support people involved in his long 4-mile line through this 12-foot cutaway that they had to do to get through here to bring the cannon up over the mountains from the seaboard that is that way. They were heading this way towards Fort Duquesne at the mouth of the Ohio River, the fork of the Ohio where the Allegheny and the Monongahela meet to form the Ohio. Now, General Braddock, 9 miles before they got to Fort Duquesne, which was their goal, to lay siege, take over the fort, drive the French off. 9 miles before, in the town today called Braddock, they were ambushed by the French and by their alliance with the Indian tribe. And Braddock's men were basically slaughtered. Of the 1,400, 900 were killed, the wagons destroyed, the supplies looted, the wagoneers, whoever couldn't escape was slaughtered and killed. The women that were along, that did the cooking and all the cleaning of the uniforms and everything needed through this frontier, were either killed, captured, kidnapped by the Indians. As Braddock was wounded, he was shot off his horse during the Battle of the Monongahela, and he was loaded into a wagon. The army began a retreat that was organized by Braddock's aide-de-camp, George Washington, that we certainly know. They made a 4-day journey back to this point, decided to Braddock died that night before. They decided the morning of July 14th to bury him here. He buried him on purpose in the middle of the road. Washington saw some prayers and things for the general, which he was fond of, and he was certainly proud to be part of the expedition. Not too keen on being defeated, of course. But Braddock was interred here. Washington ordered the troops and the wagons to march right over his grave, march on his grave. He didn't want any trace of Braddock's grave to be found by the French or the Indians, to be desecrated, looted, and actually used for political gain. So this grave has lied here since amazingly 1804. There was rumors that he was buried along the trail at that point some years later, but they weren't exactly sure. A crew was through here in 1804 doing some improvements of this roadway at the time, and as they were digging and improving, they found these bones. These bones were surely Braddock's, because they also found buttons from his uniform that could be identified as the general's. So the bones were taken from here. They were brought to a safe spot up on top of this knoll where there's a monument today, and they were reinterred there. And in 1913, a monument was built. All his due respect was given. The interesting story, not all the bones were in that grave now. Some were taken actually as souvenirs from those that found them. Some made their ways to different parts of the country. Some ended up in a museum in Philadelphia that eventually P.T. Barnum bought them and moved them to New York. Unfortunately, those bones were destroyed in a fire in his museum in New York. There's a story that a vertebrae may be down at Walter Reed Hospital in Washington today. So Braddock's bones have an interesting story. But I wanted to come here because of my association with Braddock and helping him procure wagons and supplies for his expedition. It's a moving moment for me. Braddock and I disagreed on our ideas on how to deal with the Indian attacks, but Washington and I both respected Braddock, and I think this moment is a hallowed moment, that this small plaque still exists here today, that anybody could come and see. We're up in the Allegheny Mountains, just off the National Road, Route 40, and not far from Fort Necessity, if you ever want to come here to visit. Thanks for the attention. I will see you again in another spot.